part 2 of our Codex Aeldari review, today featuring the Corsairs. My name is Mike and I'll be your host for this episode. Corsairs are a faction that have been very close to me for a number of years now, and I was really pleased to see these return to us for 9th edition Warhammer 40,000. What was interesting is how they returned to us. My original Corsair army was last used in 7th edition back in 2017, and unfortunately nearly the entire army isn't valid as a Corsair army anymore. However, most of it still sees play as standard craft worlds. We're going to be looking at the 3 units available to the Corsairs today, as well as some thoughts about how this could have been very easily been fixed with a few lines of extra text in the Codex. We're going to start today with Prince Uriel. He's the only HQ choice that features the An Haranthe keyword, which is the keyword they've used for Corsairs, and I'll apologise for how I butchered that, depending on how it's meant to be pronounced. Uriel is an autarch, with a movement of 7, ballistic skill and weapon skill of 2+, strength and toughness 3, 6 wounds, 5 attacks with a leadership 9 and a 3+ armour save. He's equipped with the Eye of Wrath and the Spear of Twilight, and if you're familiar with Uriel, both of those items should be very familiar to you from his lore. The Eye of Wrath is now a 6-inch range Assault 1, Strength 6, -3 and Damage 2 weapon, while the Spear of Twilight is a melee weapon, Strength ×2, AP -3 and flat 3 damage. This is a slight deviation from his previous rules where it was a singing spear, so it always wounded on a 2, and it had a throwing profile. Now it just is a straight spear. He has the battle focus and Strands of Fate rules like most of the Asciani, and he has a force shield with a 4+ invulnerable save like all autarchs. He has the Superlative Strategist special rule like autarchs, which allows him to use the command reroll stratagem twice during each phase instead of only once, even while embarked within a transport. His path of command is slightly different to most autarchs because it affects Eandan Corps or An Haranthe infantry within 6 of this model, giving them a reroll 1 to hit. He also has the Prince of Corsairs rule. Before the battle, when placing units into strategic reserve, if your army contains this model, you can halve the power rating of Eandan infantry and An Haranthe units for the purposes of determining the combined power rating of units placed into strategic reserves. Most importantly, his faction keywords are Aeldari, Asciani, An Haranthe and Eandan, with his standard keywords of character, infantry, autarch and Prince Yriel. So this, like I said, is the only way you can run a Corsair detachment, with Prince Yriel being the HQ choice. Because he has a fixed Eandan keyword, it does mean that you can run him in a Corsair detachment alongside, say, a Bealtan battalion or something else without breaking the rules, because he doesn't have the craft world keyword in brackets. He's only 90 points and he feels like quite a good character with 5 attacks at strength 6, -3, flat 3 damage, and an okay short range shooting weapon. Where he's going to come into his own is his ability to support the other Corsair infantry units. But like I say, he can fight in his own right. We're going to move on now to the Corsair troops choice, which are the Corsair Void Reavers. Now this unit is very standardized, is the best way to describe it. The Corsairs are 1 Felarch and 4 to 9 Void Reavers in the squad. Movement 7, weapon skill and ballistic skill 3+, strength and toughness 3, 1 wound, 2 attacks for the Void Reaver and 3 for the squad leader, the Felarch. Leadership 7 and 8 for the Felarch, and 4+ armor. Every model is equipped with a Shuriken pistol, an Aeldari power sword, and plasma grenades. Now, the interesting part about the Corsairs is this: it looks like the same kit is going to build the Void Reavers and the Void Scarred. So a lot of the options cross over between the 2 units. However, the Corsair Void Reavers are the troop choice and have a lot less flexibility. Now, all of the Void Reaver models in this unit, that doesn't include the Felarch, but all of the Void Reaver in this unit can have their Shuriken pistol and power sword replaced with a Shuriken Rifle. The Shuriken Rifle is a rapid-fire 1, 24-inch strength 4, -1 AP, 1 damage Shuriken weapon. So it is a unique profile. It's not a Shuriken catapult or a Dire Avenger catapult or anything like that. It has its own profile. It's important to note, though, that it is an all-or-nothing swap. The entire squad has to swap it. The Felarch can replace their Shuriken pistol with a Neurodisrupter or a Shuriken Rifle, and the Felarch can be equipped with a Mist Shield. Now, the Mist Shield gives the bearer a 4+ invulnerable save, probably not worth it on a 1 wound toughness 3 model. The Neurodisruptor is probably something you will consider. It's a pistol 1, 12-inch range, Strength 6, minus 3 AP, 1 damage, but each time an attack is made with this weapon, if a hit is scored, unless it's a vehicle unit, the target suffers 1 mortal wound and the attack sequence ends. So it's a guaranteed mortal wound on a hit roll of 3+, which is quite potent. For every 5 models in this unit, a Corsair Void Reaver's Power Sword or Shuriken Rifle can be replaced with one of the following: a Blaster or a Shredder. And if the unit contains 10 models, a Corsair Shuriken Rifle can be replaced with one of the following: a Shuriken Cannon or a Wraith Cannon. What's interesting about this is, for a squad of 10 to get the Shuriken Cannon or the Wraith Cannon, the squad has to have Shuriken Rifles, because there's no opportunity there to swap either of those for the Power Sword, whereas the Blaster and the Shredder can replace the Power Sword or the Rifle. So a squad of 5 with 4 rifles and a blaster is completely fine. A squad of 10 with 9 rifles and a Shuriken Cannon, completely fine, but you can't have swords and pistols and then the Wraith Cannon and the Shuriken Cannon. It's a bit of a shame. They have 2 abilities: Reavers of the Void. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack, an unmodified hit roll of 6 automatically wounds the target and is treated as an unmodified wound roll of 6. And this rule kind of solidifies why you might consider Void Reavers. Because of all their weapons being primarily Shuriken, it means that anytime you roll a 6 to hit, you're getting the benefit of the Shuriken rule. So even the basic Shuriken pistol becomes AP neg 3, and that can put a lot of pressure on people really rapidly because it's automatically wounding and it's straight out to neg 3. The Shuriken Cannon obviously being 2 damage now, moving straight out to neg 3 upon a 6 to hit as well is pretty dangerous. But the fact that it is just auto wounding, it helps get around the lower strength of the Aeldari Power Sword, so they are actually okay in combat. They have a second rule which limits them to how you build Corsair detachments. If your army is Battleforged, this unit cannot be used as a compulsory selection in a detachment unless that detachment only contains Corsair units. Now, that means that because we only have 1 HQ choice, we've only got 2 options for detachments, that being the Patrol and the Vanguard. The Vanguard obviously gives us an option for 3 elites and 2 troops, which is where the Void Reavers would fit, while the Patrol will give you an option for 3 troops and 2 elites. So you're only going to have 5 units of Corsairs regardless of which way you go, if you're doing a Corsair-specific detachment. The other interesting thing to note about the Void Reavers, which Uriel doesn't get, is that they have the Drakari keyword, which means you can actually plug the Void Reavers and the Void Scarred, which have the same keyword, into a Drakari detachment without breaking the Drakari keywords, and it also means they can embark on Drakari transports like Venoms and Raiders. They obviously keep the Asayani keyword so they can embark on Falcons and Wave Serpents, but I actually feel like there might be a build here where you utilise the Drakari transports to make particularly the Void Scarred, which we're going to talk about in a second, into a very mobile, dangerous unit. Moving on from the Void Reavers, we'll go to the Void Scarred. Now the Void Scarred are the elite choice, and you get quite a range of options for these guys. You still get the 1 Felarch as a requirement, and you get the options for 4 to 9 Void Scarred in the sort of bulk of the unit. They share the same profile as the Void Reaver with an extra attack in each, so 3 attacks on the Void Scarred and 4 on the Felarch. You also get 3 0 to 1 options. You can have 0 to 1 Shade Runner, 0 to 1 Soul Weaver, and 0 to 1 Wayseeker. Now, the Shade Runner is essentially an assassin-style character who has a weapon skill of 2+ with 4 attacks, but is otherwise identical to the squad. The Soul Weaver has only got 3 attacks and has the same profile as the Void Scarred, as does the Wayseeker, but the Wayseeker is a Psyker, and the Soul Weaver is kind of like a healer. So, the squad, again, comes with a Shuriken Pistol, Power Sword, and Plasma Grenades. If you take a Shroud Runner, he's equipped with a Shuriken Pistol, a pair of Hecatai Blades, and Plasma Grenades, which are Drakari weapons. And the Soul Weaver is equipped with a Shuriken Pistol, Power Sword, Channeler Stones, and Plasma Grenades. And the Wayseeker is equipped with a Shuriken Pistol, Witch Staff, and Plasma Grenades. Now, the paired Hecatai Blades are just a melee user, strength user, minus 3 AP, 1 damage weapon. And the Witch Staff is a strength user, AP 1, D3 damage, but an unmodified wound roll of 2+ is always successful. The interesting part about this is you do keep the option for a Mist Shield on the Felarch, and you might argue that it's worth it in this case because you can use him to protect the other elite characters. I'm not sure, but that might be an option. The options for the squad get quite intense, which is where we start getting a bit more confused. Any Corsair Void-Scarred models, Shuriken Pistol and Power Sword can be replaced with one Shuriken Rifle. Now that's actually done on a model-by-model basis, not a unit basis, so this is where we start getting a lot of the flexibility with this squad, so you can mix and match weapons. The Fellark can still have a Neurodisrupter and a Shuriken Rifle and still take a Mist Shield, which is fine. And for every 5 models in the squad, you can swap a Shuriken Rifle for a Blaster or a Shredder. That's fine. At 10 models, you can swap a Rifle for a Shuriken Cannon or a Wraith Cannon. Pretty standard stuff. Again, though, we start getting some more options because it is an elite choice. If this unit contains 10 models, one Shuriken Rifle can be replaced with one Ranger Long Rifle. And if this unit contains 10 models, our Power Sword can be replaced with a Fusion Pistol. And lastly, a Void Scarred can be equipped with a Shuriken Pistol and Aeldari Power Sword with one Falchu, which is the bird model that we've seen floating around. So when you actually look and break all this down, what this means is the Void Scarred are essentially a way of building the kill team from the forthcoming kill team kit and still using the kill team in a game of Warhammer 40,000 because you get all the options that I'm assuming will come on those sprues. I haven't seen the sprues yet, but based on this and the photos we've seen, it feels reasonably... It makes me feel really reasonably confident to say that the rules that we're seeing here will be how the kit will be produced. We'll have an option for all the Shuriken pistols, all the Power Swords, all the Shuriken Rifles, and then one of most of these special and heavy weapons, and then the options for the upgrade characters as well. Now, the Shade Runner model, when you include him, each time this unit finishes a charge move, you can select one enemy unit within engagement range of this unit and roll 1d6. On a 2 to a 5, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. On a 6, they suffer 2 mortal wounds. It's, it's okay, and he does give you a couple of extra attacks at a decent AP. If you include the Soul Weaver, you get a new item called Channeler Stones. Now, the Channeler Stones are very familiar if you've checked out the Warlord traits in advance for the standard craft world, because this works very much like one of them. Once per turn, the first time a saving throw has failed for the bearer's unit, the damage characteristic of the attack is reduced to 0. So essentially it lets you fail 1 save per turn before you actually start taking damage. So like I said, the Soul Weaver is kind of like a medic, but obviously has no revival opportunity. It just lets them ignore the first damage each turn. The Wayseeker is the last model in the squad. The Wayseeker is essentially a 1-wound Psyker, because they do come with a Witch Staff. They also have the Lodestar Helm, which means they never suffer perils of the Warp. So that's a nice safety net for them to have. It's almost like they're a very basic Farseer. They keep Reavers of the Void, which is the 6s to hit automatically wound with an unmodified wound roll of 6, and Pirates and Outcasts, meaning they can't be used as the compulsory selection in a detachment. And in this case, it'd be a Vanguard. Now, while we're talking very quickly about the Wayseeker, the unit has the Psychic keyword when you do put a Wayseeker in, and it can attempt to manifest 1 psychic power in your psychic phase and deny 1 psychic power in your opponent's psychic phase. The Wayseeker knows Smite and 1 psychic power from the Runes of Fate or 1 from the Runes of Fortune. Each time this unit attempts to deny the Witch, manifest a psychic power or perform a psychic action, measure distances and draw line of sight from the Wayseeker model. If enemy units have an ability that requires distances to be measured to or line of sight drawn to psychic units, do it to the model, the Wayseeker model. Now, I've seen a few people suggesting one of the best ways to use this Wayseeker model is go Runes of Fortune, and there's a 6 warp charge power that lets you gain a command point every turn. And putting a minimum squad of 6, which would be the Fellark, 4 basic, Void Scarred, and then the Wayseeker, and using them at the back of the board as a support unit with rifles, essentially just generating command points for your army every turn. It might have some play, it might be a little bit expensive for that, but at the same time there's still a lot of viability there. The fact you get Fate and Fortune, which are you can obviously use Guide, Doom, Fortune, not Eldritch Storm, Mind War, Executioner, Will of the Assyrian. There's a few different things there that you can do with the Farseer powers, and the fact you don't suffer perils of the Warp's great. The only downside is he isn't a character, which can limit him for some of the psychic actions. It's a really interesting unit, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what I can do with an army with this unit, and once they're more available, I definitely want to use these to generate a Vanguard or a Patrol, or both in reality, so that I can put a full detachment of Corsairs together with Prince Yriel. Now, when we start talking about points, we don't have too many to look at, which is nice and handy for us. So the points themselves, as you can see here, the Void Reavers are 5 to 10 models at 10 points a model, the Blaster 10 points, the Shredder 5, the Mist Shield 5, the Neurodisrupter 5, the Shuriken Cannon 10, and the Wraith Cannon 15. Now, most of those points costs carry over into the Void Scard. However, the points per model in the unit go up to 12. The Shade Runner is 18, the Soul Weaver is 17, and the Wayseeker is 25. You also have to add in the Falchu, which is 10, and the Ranger Long Rifle, which is 5. So what this basically means for us is we're going to end up with a squad that is, for the troops side of things at least, is going to be probably between 60 and something in the range of 120, 125 points, depending on your final build. Whereas the Void Scard are quite clearly going to be an upwards around the 200 point mark for a squad of 10, depending on which special character type models you put in and which special weapons you field. Because obviously, the maximum squad size of 10 means that if you take all 3 characters plus 7 other models, all of a sudden you're instantly now talking about a squad that's 140, 150 points, and that's before you add blasters and shredders and shuriken cannons and the sniper rifle and Falchu and Mist Shield and all those other bits. So that unit can easily blow out to 200 points. I feel like you would always take a Wayseeker for the Void Scard, and if you're going to go bigger squads, then maybe the Soul Weaver starts becoming quite viable. I'm still not convinced about the Shade Runner, despite how cool he looks, but that's going to take some playtesting. As I mentioned earlier, Prince Uriel is only 90 points, so as a HQ choice, this is pretty viable. What all this means, though, is when we put the detachments together, if we assume the Void Scard are around the 200 point mark and the Void Reavers are probably going to be around the 120, 125 mark, you end up in a position where you can probably make something in the realms of 900-ish points of Corsairs. You might even be able to stretch it out to 1,000 if you sort of load up on all the special weapons and options. Particularly if you go to a Vanguard, because obviously you can take 3 Void Scard squads. The biggest thing for me, though, is I think that there was a trick missed in regards to the rules that were presented, because what we have here is 2 squads that can be plugged into an Asciani or a Drakari army very easily as an elite or a troop choice with very few limits, and they don't impact the army ride rules because they have the right keywords. We have a character that can either be in an Yandan army or in a Corsair detachment, but he's the only HQ choice. And what I want to show you now is essentially my very basic way of how I would fix Corsairs for play. Now, this is unofficial, I haven't got anything to back this up. This is just what I would suggest could have been added to the Codex to essentially fix the way that you can build a Corsair detachment and give you access back to some of the units that you might have had in 7th edition armies. So what I would propose is that the Anharanthe detachment means that you lose your craft world attributes and then you gain the 2 Anharanthe attributes, which is the Outcasts and Pirates rule and the Reavers of the Void rule. However, you have to exchange your craft world keyword for the Anharanthe keyword, and every instance of that is swapped on their data sheets. Now what that means is it's a very limited list. The Autarch, the Autarch are essentially representing the Corsair Prince, the Farseer representing the Dreamer and the Advisor psychic role. Rangers and Shroud Runners are obviously outcasts already and fit really well into the pirate sort of Corsair theme. Windriders, Vipers, and Warwalkers are all light vehicles that are very mobile and have always been part of the Corsair style art of war. And then we've got Falcons and Wave Serpents as the gunship and the transport. Now, in an ideal world, I'd probably move Falcons to dedicated transports and remove Wave Serpents entirely, but I didn't want to start changing too many rules, and this is a really simple change of just changing a keyword. All of these units, with the possible exception of the Wave Serpent, fit in really well with the Corsair army. There's obviously no Aspect Warriors, there's no Wraiths, there's none of the support weapons, so you kind of really chop down your choices. But I feel like this kind of gives you back the feel of the Corsairs of old, because you do get most of the units. You're still limited in your psychic power. There's no runes of battle, because there's obviously no access to the warlocks here. There's no spirit wraiths. There's, it feels like you could create quite an interesting army using this unofficial way of building a detachment. And it's certainly something I wish and hope we would see as an army of renown, for example. In the meantime, of course, you can still deploy your Corsair units into Falcons, into Wave Serpents, into Drukhari Raiders and into Drukhari Venoms. Obviously, the Drukhari side of it becomes a bit more difficult because you have to get those units. But at the moment, if you field a Corsair detachment, there's nothing stopping you, alongside your Craft World detachment, putting, say, Falcons into the heavy support slots, and then using those to transport your Corsairs because they share the right keywords. So there's, a few different ideas there for you. I really like the Corsairs, and I'm really pleased to see them back. The models look spectacular, and I can't wait to see them in person. I'm hoping to revive my Sky Serpent colour scheme in the blues, and I'll probably make them a bit more teal to tie in with my Bieltan. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed part 2 of our coverage of the new Codex Aeldari, this part covering Corsairs. If you'd like to check out part 1, that covers the Aspect Warriors and the Phoenix Lords, and part 3 will cover the Inari. Thanks for listening.